Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
We are at Matchless Gifts, 26 2nd Avenue, in its new manifestation. And you may be noticing that there used to always be a picture here of Srila Prabhupada. And now Srila Prabhupada is more personally present in his Murti form. And yeah, we're here. I think this is doing our first reading since the renovation launch, right?
Yeah.
So it's such a special place, and it's become even more special. Although as I'm looking at it, I'm wondering how different it might look to all of you, because this area was kind of done before, although it's gone through a few changes and manifestations. But the rest of the building is just, rest of the inside is just, undergone immense change and just, so brilliant. Anyway, you have to come and visit. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Canto 4, Chapter 25, Text 3. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 3. While the princes were undergoing severe austerities in the water, their father was performing different types of fruitive activities. At this time, the great saint Narada, master and teacher of all spiritual life, became very compassionate upon the king and decided to instruct him about spiritual life. As pointed out by Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur, a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, Kaivalya, or merging into the Brahman effulgence, is just like going to hell. He similarly states that elevation to the upper planetary systems for the enjoyment of heavenly life is just so much phantasmagoria. This means that a devotee does not give any importance to the ultimate goal of the karmis and gyanis. The ultimate goal of the karmis is promotion to the heavenly kingdom, and the ultimate goal of the gyanis is merging into the Brahman effulgence. Of course, the gyanis are superior to the karmis, as confirmed by Lord Chaitanya. Koti kamanishta madhya eka gyani shrestha. One gyani or impersonalist is better than many thousands of fruitive actors. Therefore, a devotee never enters upon the path of karma or elevation by fruitive activities. Narada Muni took compassion upon King Prachini Bahishat when he saw the king engaged in fruitive activity. In comparison to mundane workers, those who are trying to be elevated to the higher planetary systems by performing yajnas are undoubtedly superior. In pure devotional service, however, both karma and jnana are considered bewildering features of the illusionary energy. Okay.
No comments? Okay, so I guess the main point that's being driven home here is that the king is getting absorbed in fruitive activity, and Narada Muni is recognizing that and seeing that his sons are pure devotees, so he's going to try to assist him. So let's see how this works out. So text number 4, Narada Muni asked King Prachini Bahishat, "My dear king, my dear king, what do you desire to achieve by performing these fruitive activities? The chief aim of life is to get rid of all miseries and enjoy happiness. But these two things cannot be realized by fruitive activity." Purport. In this material world, there is a great illusion which covers real intelligence. A man in the mode of passion wants to work very hard to derive some benefit, but he does not know that time will never allow him to enjoy anything permanently. Compared with the work one expends, the gain is not really so profitable. Even if it is profitable, it is not without its distress. If a man is not born rich and he wants to purchase a house, cars, and other material things, he has to work hard day and night for many years in order to possess them. Thus, happiness is not attained without undergoing some distress. So, yeah, it's amazing how Prabhupada can just put things so straightforwardly, black and white, down the line, like it's just the facts, you know. It's not like, it's not, someone might be giving, well, my opinion is, you know, that this is a dirty job, or that's a nice place, or this. Prabhupada is just saying, point blank, you're not going to get anything in the material world that leads you to happiness, because he's going off the statement in the verse, which is that basically we all want to be free from distress and enjoy happiness, which is certainly obviously a general principle. But he's saying, but there isn't anything that you can really achieve in this world without having to go through some distress to get it. And specifically the fruitive workers, which he's going to hone in on, are working hard day and night so that, you know, I remember realizing I used to work so much to earn, because I would just at the beginning of the week think, okay, if I work this amount of hours, then I'll earn this amount of money. And then if I do 6 weeks of that, then I'll have this amount of money, so I can spend it on something to try to enjoy. And at the end, I was always in debt. And anytime I did something that I thought I was going to enjoy, there was always some hassle involved. And then at the end of it, I had to come up with something new that I wanted to enjoy, because that didn't really satisfy me. It just seemed to satisfy some intellectual or physical pleasure or desire. But it's like ultimately you're left feeling unfulfilled, having gone through some stress, working so hard to try to get something that really hasn't made you fulfilled anyway. Sounds pretty depressing, right?
Next paragraph. Actually, pure happiness cannot be had within this material world. If we wish to enjoy something, we must suffer for something else. On the whole, suffering is the nature of this material world, and whatever enjoyment we are trying to achieve is simply illusion. After all, we have to suffer the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death. We may discover many fine medicines, but it is not possible to stop the sufferings of disease or death. Actually, medicine is not the counteracting agent for either disease or death. On the whole, there is no happiness in this material world. But an illusioned person works very hard for so-called happiness. Indeed, this process of working hard is actually taken for happiness. This is called illusion. Yeah, so it's interesting, this process of working hard is actually taken for happiness. I was just speaking to one devotee just over the weekend, regarding their work, and they work all the hours they're supposed to work, and then they're also aware that they put in a bit extra just to be a bit flexible, as it were, but they were just sharing that their boss, or the overall senior manager, sent a message to everyone and said, you know, we all need to work together, we need to put more hours, we. In other words, her point was everyone below the senior manager was being told, work more. They weren't getting anything out of it either. That was made clear. It's not you won't get overtime, you won't do this, but you need to, this is our company, and it isn't. It's just a workplace they go to. So she was just sharing that her realization was, I won't do that because there's more to life. And I said, I said, if you drop dead tomorrow, the ad will be in the paper before your funeral's even over. People don't, that's just the harsh reality of life. And her point was, I do all the hours. I don't skip at what I'm supposed to do. And I just put a little bit extra to make sure it's buffered, as it were. But she said, definitely won't take up this offer. But some people are like rallied by it, and they have a false sense of, they have my back, we're all in it together. But she could see it's not quite like that, and you don't need to work beyond a certain amount.
Either that, or they may be rallied because they feel like if I don't do it, then they're going to give me the sack, which is quite possible, that they'll basically fire you and say you're underperforming, you're underachieving, you're not really, we see that you're not really so inclined to work as hard, you know, they give that whole thing.
Yeah, but that's the point. That's the illusion that at the end of the day, there is no happiness you think there is through either working hard because you want to or working hard out of fear. The point being, just do what you want to do.
Yeah, you have to prioritize spiritual life, and yeah, that's the ultimate goal, I guess. Okay, we've got, yeah, I guess one more paragraph. The last one's short. Therefore, Narada Muni asked Prachini Barhishat what he desired to attain by performing so many costly sacrifices. Even if one attains a heavenly planet, he cannot avoid the distress of birth, old age, disease, and death. Someone may argue that even devotees have to undergo many distresses in executing austerities and penances connected with devotional service. Of course, for the neophytes, the routine of devotional service may be very painful, but at least they have the hope that they will ultimately be able to avoid all kinds of distress and achieve the highest perfectional stage of happiness. For the common karmis, there is no such hope, because even if they are promoted to the higher planetary systems, they are not guaranteed freedom from the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death. Even Lord Brahma, who is situated in the highest planetary system, Brahmaloka, has to die. Lord Brahma's birth and death may be different from an ordinary man's, but within this material world, he cannot avoid the distresses of birth, old age, disease, and death. If one is at all serious about attaining liberation from the miseries, he must take to devotional service. This is confirmed by the Lord himself in the Bhagavad Gita 4:9. Janma karma chamedevyam evam yu veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punar janma neti mam eti so Arjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Do you want to read the last paragraph? Should I just read it? Thus, after attaining full Krishna consciousness, the devotee does not return to this material world after death. He goes back home, back to Godhead. That is the perfect stage of happiness, unblemished by any trace of distress. Yes, so interesting. Prabhupada basically, I love it when we give these questions that are likely questions that people are thinking. And Prabhupada poses the question, well, you might say, okay, so we're working hard and experiencing some distress, but here's your guys over here working hard also to try to be Hare Krishnas, try to be devotees, and they're still sick, they're tired, they're upset or frustrated or bickering or whatever they might be. So what's the difference? At least this way, I'm going to get some pleasure and some enjoyment. So Prabhupada kind of throws out there, which he implies that in an advanced stage, you actually don't feel any distress in the pursuit of devotional service. You just feel blissful and you feel the nectar. But in a neophyte stage, there is going to be some distress of the activities itself, whatever it is, rising early, chanting your rounds, following the principles, the restrictions that may occur in life. These things may be considered distressful in the beginning for a neophyte. And this reminds me of the principle that's described in the Gita about the mode of goodness, that it's poison in the beginning, but it's nectar in the end. Whereas passion seems like nectar in the beginning, but it turns into poison, and ignorance is basically just poison from beginning to end. So in the mode of goodness, we may have to undergo some austerity and difficulty, but over time, and with the practice and the purification that comes from the practice of devotional service of bhakti, then our heart becomes purified and cleansed, and therefore it's really what we're experiencing in the beginning is that we're still attached, and later when we become more detached, then we're not actually so so affected by certain things that go on. So like that. But somehow Prabhupada kind of, I felt like, sometimes I feel like he sort of writes a blank check, not a blank check, a post-dated check also. He says that at least they have the hope that they will ultimately be able to avoid all kinds of distresses and achieve the highest perfectional stage of happiness. So he's giving, at least they have some hope that they'll become free from all these distresses. Then he counters that by saying, but the materialists, there is no hope. Even if they achieve the higher planetary systems, they still have birth, death, disease, and old age. But for a devotee, at least there's the possibility that they'll go Jamba Karma Chame Divyam, they'll go back to Godhead, and they won't have to take birth in this material world again. So like that. Anyway, a few thoughts. Anything else from your side? Okay, so we'll go ahead and conclude there. Thank you all very much for tuning in.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.